Open your eyes. Wake up, Link.
I'm Luke Summerhaze.
I'm James J. Miles.
I'm James the Jaster Stewart.
And you're listening to Hyrule Field Report. Jas, what did we do last week?
And last time we finished up on Shrine 2 of the Great Sky Islands.
And on this week's edition of the report, we head towards the third shrine and hopefully finish up our adventures on the Great Sky Island.
So we touched on this a little bit last week. You step out of In-Issa Shrine, and right there is a cave you can now smash open with your newfound hammer.
Yes, and this is one of the big new things that Tears of the Kingdom has, is littered across the whole world. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of little cave networks for you to explore.
This first one right outside the shrine isn't much of a cave. It's just where you get, finally, a shirt.
Yes, Link's been running topless across this adventure so far, and I think I spoke about on our first episode proper of this cast. I was terrified I'd missed that shirt in the initial first shrine, but no, it's just in a cave 9 million miles away from where you find the bottoms. But it's the fact that you get a pop-up, like new discovery, it's marked on the map as a cave. It's so
it actually tells you as well when you're actually done with the cave, if it's a little check mark on them.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Because, well, before we... Actually, no, you're right, Luke. This first cave with the shirt in it, I don't think is a marked
Yeah, because it's barely a cave. It's just you smash the rock and there's a chest there.
It's a little walkthrough. No, sorry, I'm getting muddled up here, because before that...
very shortly we will get to another cave, but before that, we see something new which wasn't really in Breath of the Wild. Because we'll find a little group of constructs, and they're actually fighting some choo-choos.
Yes. I don't remember seeing like NPCs fighting each other in.
You would see monsters hassling travelers in Breath of the Wild,
right?
And you could step in and rescue them, but there was never a case where there were different groups of enemies fighting.
Yeah, I guess because.
I think like some big enemies would fight. Like you could make a Talus fight a Guardian.
Oh, okay.
But you had to go out of your way to like drag them to each other.
I was wondering about that because the Guardians are also, corrupted by, malice and or
In fact, it might not even have been, rather than like a Monster Hunter World turf war, it might have been more like a old Monster Hunter game where just they're both doing attacks and they happen to hit each other.
Right. Not so much like enemy factions as such here, which
Whereas here you've got full on Halo style. They will fight each other, and you can use that to your advantage, sort of stuff.
I first saw that, I was like, "Oh, we've got a little battle going on. Let me join in, kill everybody."
I'll let them duke it out.
Placing down bets, like on the choo-choos.
No, I was all in on the constructs. I remember thinking this as well when I saw these guys fight, is that in another game where you would maybe have experience points, per se, for defeating enemies, I would definitely charge in and, I'm not letting them take my experience points, I'm going to defeat those enemies. In a game like this, where there's no such concept and your reward for, vanquishing an enemy is the parts that it drops, whether that's for...
You still get the choo-choo drops then, even if the construct, kills them.
Yeah, all the parts still drop. So, there's no real incentive to run in. The idea is then just to let them duke it out and be a little vulture.
I'm just excited to join like a mini little skirmish, that's all.
Yeah, you get amongst it.
Waving a little wooden stick about, like, I'm here.
I will say I don't one thing I will say is I don't remember this coming up as often later in the adventure, but I think that's maybe the scarcity of the construct enemy type compared to just general monsters.
Yeah.
But it was very cool to see.
Yeah, I do. There's definitely where I'm at in the game. I'm still seeing it now and then. But yeah, perhaps maybe as I'm getting to like the end game, I'm going to be seeing less of the constructs getting involved. But then there's some like even bigger like multi-character battles coming up later.
Yes. But after, I suppose, we get past the little melee there, we have our first proper named cave, the Pondside Cave that we come across. And immediately once you venture into the Pondside Cave, you'll find a new and very important item, a bright bloom seed.
Yeah, I definitely would have picked them up here, but it wasn't until much later and much darker caves that I realised how useful they are.
Yes. I mean,
this
think,
was just me picking up everything I saw at this point.
I think when I picked it up and it gave the tooltip as to what it did, I then hit one and saw that it illuminated. But yeah, these are really, really useful. Like you said, look, this maybe isn't the most useful place to highlight how good they are.
If they're not number one on your most used item list, like, I don't know what you're doing in this game.
Lighting a lot of stuff on fire is what I'm doing.
Fair enough.
I think for me it's bomb arrows now, but I've been fighting a lot of tougher enemies that I've been using tons of bombs on, so yeah. But yeah, for a good chunk of the game, it was these guys.
It's like bright bloom seeds, fire seeds, and then bombs for me.
We'll get into why on a episode in the not too distant future, I think. But yeah, very useful, and this is your first chance to actually see them in action. Something you might also come across on this cave is a very strange blue frog creature. Did you guys come across the?
Oh yeah. I met the bubble frog.
Yeah. Similar to the Breath of the Wild's like the Tory Mountain like horse.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
so I got off straight away. Like it reminded me of right away.
They're all related, right? Because they're all related to the Bloopies.
Right.
Yes.
Because yeah, you take out the bubble frog, and it sort of floats up and disappears, and leaves behind a little Bloopy who scarpers.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I like, is the bubble frog like a transformation they can do, or like a disguise they take on, or?
Yeah, it's maybe like an intimidation sort of deal that they do, because Bloopies are, I'd imagine, hunted quite fiercely by very greedy adventurers. Definitely haven't mercilessly shot arrows at a Bloopy myself to get a pocket change. So yeah, they probably like for hideaway and become these more nimble bastards sometimes to shoot with an arrow creatures. But yeah, I think you mentioned there, Jas, about obviously they're all linked to Satori Mountain. That's expanded upon in a bit more detail with we'll find out a little bit about the purpose of what the bubble frog actually drops, which is the bubble gem.
Yes, which will hopefully give us some more clues about bubble frogs as we go on.
Yes.
Admittedly, not from the most reliable narrator.
Yes. I was a bit curious at first when I saw the top right pop up and it was like another collectible. I was already thinking, okay, so we're getting another sort of Korok seeds equivalent. And whilst they're definitely not as populous or as difficult to find in a lot of cases as Korok seeds, the bubble frogs, well, let's put it this way. There's one in every single cave that you'll come across throughout your journey. And
sometimes very well hidden, and you feel like you're in the cave for a different reason.
Yep.
Yeah.
Generally,
in there.
generally, like, yeah, you've got like
matter.
a cave to like tick off, like, and like you think you've been everywhere, like the one thing you're probably missing is the bubble frog.
Yep. Well, I mean, you don't get the tick until you've got the bubble gem.
Right.
That is always, that's what triggers it. So even if you haven't, let's just say there you've gone into the cave for a quest. Even if you do the quest, it doesn't matter. If you find that bubble frog first, if you haven't done that quest, you'll get the tick. That's what the tick on the map is to designate. So if you're trying to find any bubble frogs later in your journey and you have a look on your map, have a look for any caves that don't have that tick next to it, and go spelunking. But yeah, we'll get more into those guys in a later episode. But for now, this is your first chance to actually come across these strange little toads.
Nice. No, my main takeaway when I went into this cave was just like big Elden Ring vibes.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this on our first impressions, but these caves, these little kind of not mini dungeons, but there is another place to explore, right? These sort of mini challenges. It's almost like another shrine in a sense. And there's usually a fair bit to these caves. They're not just little hollows with maybe a few rocks in them. There's usually a few levels to them or some sort of puzzle you need to solve. And the cave networks are a real big part of Tears of the Kingdom.
They definitely are comparable, like to shrines, like because there's certain ones that can get like really big, like inexpansive, like and shrines are the same. They can be really small shrines usually structured, but like there's other ones later that you can find that are absolutely a lot bigger than you would expect compared to Breath of the Wild's like shrines.
And what I love about them is that they can really catch you off guard with how big they are. You can go into a cave thinking it's just going to be like a little jaunt with a couple of enemies in it, and then like you go through this hole, and then you go down this level, and then you find like a big underground lake, and then that's got 2 more, and then you're in some kind of dungeon.
Yeah, and then there's a big boss at the end.
Yep. So yeah, they can be pretty bonkers. And they don't even need to include a little warp point at the end like they do in Elden Ring, because, as we'll find out later this episode, we've got that built in.
We've got our very own escape rope, yep. So once you traverse through the Pondside Cave, we'll come to another smaller river, but
this one is flowing a lot faster. It's more of an issue than the water we crossed before.
Yes, and this is a river I think you were thinking
Yeah,
about in the
definitely
previous
was, yeah.
episode, Jas.
Just before we cross the river, though, just to after you emerge from the cave, if you turn right, there's a little side path you can go down. It's got some of those floating metal boxes that you can move.
Oh yeah.
With the Ultra Hand.
I was like interested in that like right away. I was like, it's like connecting to like a little like separate floating island. And like, oh, there's a little chest down there. I'm going down there before I cross this river.
Yeah, I mean that's the test of a true gamer, right? You check every possible thing you can do that's not the main thing first.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I remember kind of making a little staircase with those floating platforms for myself and jumping the gaps.
I think there's a captain or something down there you fight before you get the chest.
There is an enemy.
That
Yeah.
rings a bell.
I actually got myself kind of slightly stuck down there because I wasn't smart enough like Jay was there to make like a staircase out of the floating things. I put them, well, I kind of did, but I made them too high before I jumped down and I was like, hey, I'm down. Not realising that my Ultra Hand ability only stretches so far. It's not. It's got a certain range like to it. I was like, oh dear, I've got the treasure, but I've got stuck. What do I do? Luckily there was like about 3 or 4 trees down on this little island with the chest, and I just chopped them up, stuck them together, and managed to attach it to the closest floating platform and pull the whole entire platform all the way down. I was like, this is excellent. Like, thought I was like soft locked and having to restart the game and actually figured out basically an element that wasn't a puzzle, but it was for me in that situation.
See, that's what I love about this starting area, is that I know we spoke about it's maybe a bit more linear and focused than the Great Plateau, but the way it's designed is to get you thinking about clever ways to use the new powers.
That's why I didn't get that feeling. I can
that's what it's
understand when
all
people
focused
do
on.
say like it is linear. It definitely is, but that's why I never got that feeling, because obviously I had that moment where I got stuck on that island, and also all the caves that we've spoke about before.
Yeah.
I was just like, what's this? What's down here? What's over
It's
here?
only in comparison. In comparison,
In terms
to
of the
Breath
main
the Wild,
quest,
it was
absolutely.
still-
I get what people are saying.
But Breath of the Wild was
Just the way I played it. It's just the way I play the game.
an
I'm always going to
example of
remember like
openness, right?
bits in between, like the main quests, more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the journey's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But after we return from our little side adventure there, we've got a fast flowing river where it's not going to be possible just to make a bog standard log raft this time. We're going to have to attach something onto the raft to propel us forward, and this is where we're given our first energy cell. We get our
Yes.
introduction to Zonai devices.
Possibly like a bigger new thing than like some of the powers we've been given so far. Zonai devices really, really change up the game.
Yeah, and they're everywhere. I mean, they're involved in so many puzzles and so many ways you traverse and get about the world. Yeah, like you said, it's a huge part of Tears of the Kingdom.
Well, and these batteries is like a third resource, or like a third meter after your health and your stamina. You've also now got your like battery charge.
Almost like a magic meter from the old games.
Yes, yeah, very much so. Of course, here, it's literally just a couple of fans. And this is the bit where not knowing the buttons really, really screwed me. I spent ages crossing this river the first time. I was putting things on at the wrong angle, it was crashing, I was having to restart over and over, I was having to smash things up and remake them. I didn't even know the correct buttons to detach things, like how you have to wiggle the right stick.
Yep.
So yeah, I was just desperately trying to bounce things off of other things to get them to land the way up I wanted them.
Did you have like the normal?
Vaguely
Did you have like the
close
normal
enough.
HUD up at this point in the game, or were you on like the Pro HUD?
No, of course not. I switched to Pro like
Fair enough.
1 minute into the game, so that also didn't help.
I was going to say that's probably like
Or,
like your big sticking point, because I did have it on like initially, like, and it kind of helped with like learning the controls for Ultra Hand.
Were you frustrated at this point and thinking, I might bounce off this, or were you thinking there must be something I'm missing?
I was definitely thinking there's definitely something I'm missing.
Right.
I was also thinking this is really funny.
Good. Yeah.
So at this, like, obviously 100 hours of that, it would stop being funny, right?
Well, yeah.
But at this stage, I was definitely having a good chuckle at what was going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was pretty... But like, I thought I tried every conceivable button. And it's the fact that it's hold down right and use D-pad is what I hadn't tried. But I got to a point where I was like, maybe I haven't missed something. Maybe this is just how it works. But the fact, when I pressed R, like, the different arrows do come up on screen. So I was like, right, well, that's definitely something. So yeah.
There is something just really satisfying, though, about making any sort of contraption in this game using the Zonai devices, and even just a random few logs, obviously like the raft, and just having your finished creation work. Like when I had that moment where I just successfully got across the river, and I was like, I made this. I did this. This is great. So yeah, I love making strange and wonderful new devices.
And like I said, going back to this place yesterday and just getting across that river in like 3 seconds flat was a very satisfying sign that, okay, I have actually learned these mechanics pretty well.
And after a short little climb, once we end up fording the river on our lovely device, we've got another opportunity to play about with making attaching a fan to a Zonai device with some minecarts.
Yes.
Whack a fan on the back of that, and suddenly a rail, you can boost yourself up the rail and jet on off to the next cave.
And yeah, this is some fun stuff, getting into the minecarts and whizzing around at high speeds. I mean, minecarts in caves are a pretty common game trope, but I don't feel like I've done this where, like, I'm building them and moving them and stuff myself in this way. It's really fun.
Did you also know that you can attach them,
I've seen
minecarts? You can fuse them to your shield. Shield surf,
I'd like to say that, yeah. I've seen some people that have ended up just shield surfing on it. I was like, that's, you know, I didn't use the shield surfing mechanic a lot outside of maybe the mini games in Breath of the Wild. I know it's a big deal with like speedrunners as a good movement option, right? And just crazy. Just people seeing people like Tony Hawk survey these rails. So clever.
Minecart one's just great.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet, but I've seen it and it is the coolest.
And yeah, this whole kind of area, like from the point of the river into the mining cave and then just outside, is really revolved around teaching us about the Zona devices and batteries and how that whole and how to get new Zona devices and how to increase your battery capacity. This is kind of a little tutorial section around that, because in the mining cave itself, there's some ore outcrops. If you decide to smack them, instead of getting what you would normally get in the first game, which would maybe be flint or amber, or if you're lucky, one of the rarer gems, it drops a new type of mineral called zonite.
Zonite, I think.
Zonite?
Yeah, zonite.
Yes,
zonite. Like, yeah. So it's I don't know what they're
zonite.
How you want to pronounce it. Zonite.
Zonite. Zonite.
And if you take the zonite over to a nearby forging construct, he can accept that and process it and create crystallized charges, which he mentions is used for powering and fueling energy cells. Right now, there was no way to convert that into battery life, but it kind of teaches you that this zonite material is another form of currency, and it's another way of upgrading. It's how you're going to upgrade your battery capacity throughout the journey. But if I remember rightly, the forge constructs do mention that there's very little zonite remaining on the Great Sky Island. This cave has a very small. There's very few outcrops left, and the majority of it's going to be found. They said in the lands below. So it seems like obviously something for you to be aware of, but it's not something you're going to engage with on the Great Sky Island to a big degree.
No.
Did you guys pick up any of the crystallized shards
I
when you were in
picked
here?
some up, but I don't think I've done much with them yet. At least I hadn't at this point.
Yeah, I definitely picked them up.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're definitely more of a thing in another area that we'll get to. Also, just outside the cave, before we move into our next cave, I'm pretty sure this is where you see your first Zonai device capsule dispenser.
Yeah, I remember seeing it kind of in the distance. I don't know if I used it yet, or even could use it yet, but I remember seeing one.
I definitely remember using it here.
Okay.
So yeah, you go up to it and there's a construct by it that teaches you that if you drop some materials, he mentions specifically Zonai charges, and any sort of material from a Zonai construct, like the soldier constructs have been dropping. If you drop that into it's basically like a cooking pot equivalent, just by outside the device capsule
machine
dispenser, it will then drop. Yeah. I think for me, it's best just to use the Zonai charges themselves. You seem to get pretty much all the materials you need from that. I thought it was going to be if you drop a Zonai charge along with, let's say, a key swing, you might get like a a wing component or something like that. But it doesn't work like that. You chuck in Zonai charges, you will get a random Zonai device spat out of the machine. But it's also
random from like the list
very
that's
cool to see
available
that-
like on them, because each one has like different parts attached to them.
That's it. Yeah. So you'll have to travel to different areas to
I
get.
had like a
device
funny
capsules,
theory
but
about
also-
these like machines, because obviously mentioned that they're gacha machines. Someone online basically mentioned that I think Nintendo put these in this game as a kind of little cheeky call out to Genshin Impact, which apparently copied a whole lot of Breath of the Wild's like mechanics and stuff. And obviously Genshin Impact is
just
like
have to
a
look at a trailer and it
gacha
looks
game as
exactly
well
like
on top of
Genshin.
it. So like, I wonder if Nintendo are just cheekily going, copying our game, eh? Dare you? We'll put gacha machines in ours.
So I haven't played any Genshin Impact, but I've got a bunch of students who play it. And so I talk to them about it, and they're never telling me like, oh, I did this in the game and it was fun, or I enjoyed this in the game. It's always just, I want this character and I spent all this money.
Yep.
The trailers make it look like Breath of the Wild, but it seems like the main
It's a
thing
pay
is just
to
gacha,
play
gacha,
type of
gacha.
game.
Mm-hmm.
Did a little bit of it. It's all right. Just didn't want to spend money.
Yeah.
But I did spend Zonai charges, and I did get some device capsules. So yeah, this is also the game teaching you that you don't have to just rely on Zonai
In the
devices
world,
that you'll
yeah.
find, dotted about, left or strewn in the wild. You'll be able to drop down your own from capsules and use them to create whatever you want. So I think from this machine, if I remember rightly, I think I noted down you can get a flame emitter, which is basically a flamethrower, obviously. You can get a fan, which I've seen in use as well, and a portable pot. So anywhere you want to slap that down and get to cooking, you don't have to just go to a village. You can do that out in the wilds now as well.
Because they only do one meal, I thought the portable pots, they didn't seem that useful. But in like, it was when I was doing the first dungeon, and it was like, I was in a real pinch because I was out of hot food. And it meant I could bust out my portable pot and just make like one more spicy elixir just to get me through like the finale. So yeah,
I've done that as well. Like when I was recently playing, and I was like, I needed like similar to you, just like low on food. I needed it there and then. I think I had like about 15, 20 like portable pots, and I just whacked down 10 and got like cooking away on each one.
Open up your own restaurant.
And then, there's one more cave here. I actually didn't find this on my initial playthrough. I found it when I went back yesterday. It's called Bottomless Cave.
Oh, really? I thought this is how you get to the next shrine, no?
I think it is meant
went
to
around
be,
it.
but I guess I found some stupid way around the sides and made a ladder out of logs or whatever nonsense I did to get up there.
Fair enough.
But this cave, the main thing is it's our reintroduction to likes.
Yes. Oh, when I saw this, when I walked into this cave and I saw this lad, I just had a guttural reaction.
Like, what
oh
the hell?
God!
What the hell is that? Yeah,
What's
that was the
that? And then I realised what it was. Horrific creatures.
Yes. My earliest memory of likes is one of the Game Boy games. I don't know if it was Link's Awakening or one of the Oracle's ones.
Yeah, that was the thing
it
they
ate my
always done.
shield.
Like, if you don't let them catch you because they take your shield. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, at least in this game, if they eat one of your items, you've got like 5 shields, and losing items is a thing. Back in the old games, you usually only had one
you
shield.
had to travel back to a
When
town
monster
and buy
ate my
one.
Shield, I was like, what? Yeah.
I think the first time I saw a like was in Smash Brothers Melee in the adventure mode.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I really like what they've done with them in this game.
In Ocarina of Time, are those big flying things technically likes?
No, those are what are they called? They've got a name, but no, they aren't likes.
Okay.
What are they called? I'm gonna have to look this up now.
I'm literally on the Ocarina of Time enemy list right now. Don't worry.
But yeah, I like the
the likes.
I like the likes in this game. They're I like the like. They're
I like the like.
P hat.
Lever, they're old, I think.
Oh, you thinking of levers? I was thinking of P hats.
Oh, P hat, yeah, P hat is what I was thinking of. You are correct.
Yes. But yeah, they're interesting because you've got to get close enough to them for them to kind of gob out their weak point.
Oh, well, the first one like is
and
kind
either
of the
smack
first
that
normal
if
likes are
got
weak to fire,
squish.
so fire-fruited arrow opens their mouth.
I remember using bomb arrows on them to
That works
get
as
them
well.
I
to open,
usually
which I think-
just... I get close enough that they reveal their weak point, and then I pop it with an arrow real quick.
Yeah.
And once you've done that, then they lie down and you can get some good hits in. I will say, I don't have much trouble fighting one like. But there's a couple of points where you have two, and it means when you're getting close enough to attack one, you're in range of the other one to grab you.
Yeah, I've definitely
then
found
they
like
can
in
be in
a
trouble.
later cave there's like about 3 or 4 of them quite kind of close by, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to tackle this situation? Just like relying on my bow for the most part.
Yeah, there's some interesting variants of likes as well that you'll come across later in your journey.
Hmm.
Don't know if you've come across
Definitely
any of
have,
them
yeah.
so far, but
I've seen like an ice one and a fire one or whatever, a lightning one, stuff like that.
yeah, and those I think those are definitely a bit more challenging than just the base version, but they're still I think they're still that.
Honestly, I think
initial
they're my
threat
favourite
is
enemy
God.
in Tears of the Kingdom, like so far.
What are you?
Like shit, like it's just
Yeah, really?
just really there's something about them I really like. Like they're always it's got an obvious weak point, but it's not always easy to kind of like obviously like figure out like the normal ones as fire, but then we were saying if there's multiple of them, it's like always a nice little challenge to kind of figure out how to like tackle them. Yeah, so far like in all the time that I played, definitely up there.
Have you both seen the Peter Jackson King Kong film?
Long time ago.
Years and years and years ago, mate. Yeah.
There's the gross bit where they fall into a pit and there's like bugs that attack people.
No memory, but sure.
There's one that in it. I'm looking at the King Kong wiki as we speak. Apparently, it's called a Carnictus, but it's very similar to the likes depicted here. It's super gross.
Nice.
It like eats.
Andy
What's the guy who
Serkis.
played Gollum?
Andy Serkis.
Yeah, it eats Andy Serkis' face.
Oh, lovely.
But yeah, it's like based on like some prehistoric worms and some kinds of like sea slimes and
Graboids.
bloodworms
Maybe
and
it's the
stuff.
graboid thing of
There's
the
definitely a
likes
gross sort
that
of
make
bug.
name. Yeah,
There's a bit of a
it's just
graboid
Tremors
vibe.
and
as well,
graboids.
yeah.
Like that's why I think that's why I really like
Yeah,
them.
they're definitely a gross
that
kind
movie.
of bug. Yeah, either by going through this cave or doing some convoluted nonsense with a pile of logs, you eventually find yourself up at the third shrine.
Yes. Gutenbach.
Guten Tag, Guten Back.
Yeah, which great name.
Yep. The
The
ability
ability
to rise.
Jinx.
Where we get the ascend power, which for me is a lifesaver.
Strong,
It is
yeah,
such
it's
a
strongly
convenient
becoming
power
my
on
go-to
so
thing
many
to use to
occasions.
like, how can I break this puzzle? How can I ascend past this floor?
Oh, there's another power we'll get to that I use to break every puzzle in the game I don't like. But yeah, yeah, Ascend's just is pure and simple. You just rise through the ceiling, and just continue traveling until you come to the other side. We alluded to earlier on about caves. Get down into the
Ascend.
cave, to get back out, just ascend out. But it is also useful, I think, in a lot of like puzzles and such as well. Like it will be used in solutions to get to the next floor of an area, or ascend to this maybe there's like a hollowed out structure with a floor in the middle, but you can ascend up to the floor in the middle to get to whatever you need to get to.
I was like talking there about using it to like kind of almost kind of break the game. Was like somewhere later on in one of the dungeons where I basically ascended, like got up so high into in the dungeon area that I basically ascended into the boss room. I was like just poked out, and I'm like, this is the boss room. I'm not meant to be here. Back down I go. Figure out the rest of the puzzle properly.
I spent so long forgetting I had this ability.
Oh no, I could never forget Ascend.
But like the amount of times I'd be like, I just don't know how to get out of this. Oh right, I can just literally just go up through this bit of ceiling.
It can be like I love it, but like I can definitely see what you're saying there. It
The
definitely
amount of
can be
puzzles,
like a
which
bit
turns out
like
are
early
very
going
simple.
as a bit of a forgettable ability.
Yeah, well, you've really got to rewire your brain, right? Because it's that's not how you think about spaces, right? But you can just go up through any ceiling you see.
It reminded
pretty
me
bonkers.
in a sort of way of the like the wall painting power in A Link Between Worlds.
Yeah,
Kind
I know
of.
what you mean.
Some sort of idea of kind of rewiring your brain in terms of the geometry of a level or what have you.
Because in that game, it's like you're rewiring your brain,
Ascend,
like from like
I
to
think
play
this.
going from like a 3D space to a 2D one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something which I've seen pointed out elsewhere, like this is an incredibly impressive bit of actual like game development. Like the amount of games where like you can accidentally get through geometry into the space between spaces, that they've built a mechanic around treating those spaces like physical solid rock.
Yep.
And something that came out, I've seen a couple posts like the last couple of days. Apparently, Aonuma has said that when the game was delayed about a year ago, it was
just
basically
spent the rest
finished.
of the time to polish it. Yeah.
And they took that year to make it work, to make it solid.
Yeah.
And
it shows.
Yeah,
that's really just got to be a nightmare.
It just shows how
it's got to be a nightmare from a development standpoint to get
is.
all these mechanics that Tears of the Kingdom has, to get them like working the way they have. Like like and just breaking like constantly, like just simple like physics that they've got, like stuff like that. I've seen like online that it's not easy to like to kind of have like a platform like that a player plays with, and let's say that platform like rotates, which obviously you can do that with Ultra Hand, and then have that player put another item on that platform and keep it rotating at the same time. Like that's not an easy thing to do in development at all.
Yeah.
It's so complex, like, and they just Tears of the Kingdom, they just make it seem easy, like it just works. Like every time you think, and every time, like I mentioned, like I feel like I'm breaking the game with Ascend. I'm not really breaking it. It's just the fact that it works is unreal. Yeah.
Circumventing a few battles. yeah.
So what's that line? When something is done well, you don't notice it's being done. And this game is such an example of that. Like, it's doing incredible stuff that you've never seen before, and it all just feels like, well, yeah, of course that works. That's how it works. It particularly, like, so obviously I'm a big Pokemon fan, and I played and I really enjoyed Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. But they obviously had their problems. And this game is going so much bigger, so much faster, looking better, and running so smoothly on the same machine. And but like, I understand why. It's because Pokemon, because it's part of a big media franchise, they have to get a new generation out every 3 years. because, you know, the trading card is waiting for new Pokemon, and the anime is waiting for new Pokemon, and the merch teams are waiting for new Pokemon. But yeah, like, this game is an example of, hey, when you can afford to just actually take your time and make the game you want to make, amazing things are possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love it if the game industry learned that lesson from this game, but they won't.
I know Final Fantasy 16 did very much the same thing that Iruma mentioned. I think that game has been finished for some time as well, but they've been just polishing and such, which makes me I'm very excited to play another game that's coming out this year in less than a month as time of recording.
How did Final Fantasy 15 launch?
Terribly.
Yeah, so that's making me wonder, like,
yeah,
I guess they don't want that again, right?
It was a unfinished bug, maybe not so buggy, but it's just a mess.
There was the whole thing that the story was meant to be finished by DLC and then it didn't all come out, right?
Yeah, it's a different lead dev on 16. It's
I know.
Yeah,
it's the Final Fantasy 14 guy, right?
Yes, Yoshida, and it's Creative Business Unit 3, as they're known as. At Square Enix, so yeah.
Plus, they've got a Devil May Cry guy on the combat, right?
Yeah, they're I see them cut from a very similar cloth as a lot of Nintendo devs. That whole team. But yeah.
Yep. Tangent there on Pokemon and Final Fantasy.
We should get back. Progressing through. So after we finish the Ascend Shrine. There's a couple more bits where we can ascend up, and you'll make.
I actually almost missed that like
Gives you a chance
raised
to
area
play
because
it
when
a
you
little
come
bit.
out of this third shrine, it plops you like on the edge of a cliff, almost, and temple.
Yeah, and it points you towards like the next place. But if you go back,
Yeah, I was just like I almost like jumped down because I was like you're at the edge of a cliff if you
like-
walk forward a little bit out of the shrine, and there's like just a body of water below you. And I'm like, are they telling me to dive down here? Like, I'm like, wait a second.
You could. So there's a little random platform with some enemies to fight and a chest on top. Technically, you could get up there beforehand if you just like put some trees together.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah, that's
not like
behind the
an
shrine. That's where I was like, wait a
overhanging
minute,
rock.
You're not
gonna jump off
meant
yet. I
to,
circle
right?
back, and that's when I clocked that little area that you mentioned there. And I'm like, yeah, this is where you're meant to use Ascend.
I don't think you unlock
Isn't it
anything wild. I think you just get some
Snobbits?
gems or something, but it's still a cool little.
You're up there, above the
Oh,
shrine.
is it? Maybe you're right.
That's above the shrine. That's kind of on the next. That's
right.
on the path to the glider
Okay,
down to back
yeah.
into the Table of Time. But before we get to that glider, if you do poke about this area after the shrine, I'm pretty sure around here. Did any of you come across the flux construct on your first visit here?
Yeah,
I
caught that on
didn't,
my
but
way
I
back
could
as well.
see it when I went back. I'm not. Was it there?
Yes.
Was it actually there the first time you
Yes.
went there? Okay.
Yes. 'Cause I fought it after the shrine.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I wanted to speak about these for a little bit. And the fact that it's on the starting island, it kind of, not to the same degree, because whilst it's a hard fight, especially for this stage of the game, it's not as hard as the equivalent, which would be sometimes in Dark Souls games, they'd hide like a uber tough enemy in like the starting area. There's like the giant crystal lizard in Dark Souls 3, for example, or
Yeah. Or even in the first game, you can fight the boss without your sword, right?
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah. So it's the fact I saw this, I was like, oh, I want to tackle this guy.
Well, even just to stick with this series, in Breath of the Wild, there's a couple of guardians on the Great Plateau. I think they're ones without legs, but still they're
neutered. Yeah,
a threat.
Yeah.
And then also, if you play it in Master Mode, they stuck a Lionel up there.
Madmen. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, the flux constructs, which are basically they remind me like, is there not like a I'm sure there's like an enemy in like a Kirby game or a
Well, there's
Mario
a
game.
like
boss
a-
in
Not a big block monster in
Bayonetta
the
2 who
Dragon
was almost
Quest like
exactly
series.
this.
Is it that you're thinking of? Golems, yeah.
Oh, I
Oh
remember
yeah, the
it's
Dragon
from.
Quest golems. Yeah.
I remember exactly what. Not Gunstar Heroes. There's a
Oh,
boss like
really?
this, exactly like this in Gunstar Heroes. I remember that now. Yeah, yeah. I think it's in like the dice maze level thing. Yeah, but pretty much bang on, made of blocks, big sort of humanoid structure. But the cool thing about the flux constructs, so there's like a one of the bricks that it's comprised of is kind of glowing, and that's its weak point that you have to hit a few
Hmm.
times. When you hit it a few times, it will then break apart. So one way you can do it is wait till it attacks, and then it kind of takes a minute to recover, and you can hit it with some arrows whilst it's in that recovery position. Then it breaks apart. But you can also use Ultra Hand to grab the weak point, and then if you do the shake the right stick to break it apart, you break apart the whole structure before having to hit it,
Yeah.
and
I
then you
actually
can
saw
run in.
something a
That's
little bit
really
earlier
cool.
on today, like where
Yeah.
apparently if you
I haven't
can
even tried that.
use Ultra Hand and pull away the first blocks of where its hands are, and it's the blocks from its feet, and totally stop it. Attack you.
Totally
It
new to
tries
it.
to throw out its attacks, and it's like it can't reach you
Um,
because you've removed all its hands and feet, basically.
And initially, I thought, okay, it's just going to be like a stone talus from where it'll just reconstitute again, but it does. But it reconstitutes into this giant cube and starts trying to roll around on the ground trying to crush you. And I'm like, what's this? And again, this one was a lot harder to fight, and this is where I actually began using Ultra Hand against it because I thought, I wonder if I can. Oh, I can. And if you pull enough away enough of the blocks before you even get the main one, you kind of break its structure and it can't roll about anymore. It just crumbles, and then you can run in and get the smacks in it again. And then the last form after it reconstitutes, before it starts cycling back round to the first one, is like a floating platform. Um, and the idea behind this is this one flies low enough, luckily, that you can ascend up through the platform and then smack it and then let it drop back down. So for me, it was kind of a culmination boss fight of sorts from the first three powers, kind of getting me to use all three of the powers because obviously I've used weapons and I was using Ultra Hand creatively and then Ascend. And
That's really cool, man.
I
Like,
love these guys. These are my
I didn't.
favorite new enemy
When I fought them,
types.
one of them for the first
Super
time, I
cool.
was like, I didn't even think of using like Ultra Hand and stuff like that, or like the only thing I eventually used was when it gets into its like final like form, like where one of its close to its final forms, and it throws out the cubes. Like jump, like straight away I was like, oh, I need to jump on these and then use recall to get back up to the top of them. But before that, and all of its other
Recall,
phases, I'm
yeah.
basically just like waiting for
Yeah,
the
so this
sweet
one
point to
flies
move
low
into
enough,
the
and
right spot so I
luckily,
can shoot it with an arrow. I'm like, yep, yeah, I know, I need to now, man. I'm like fighting these things like
nah,
all
get
wrong.
Ultra Hand going, man.
Yeah, you've
And I
clearly,
think,
Jay, like you've been thinking with the game's mechanics way
yeah,
earlier than I was, because I fought this guy and I'm just like, well, it's an enemy in a game. I'm going to dodge its attacks and hit it with my weapons, and that was basically the extent of my tactics.
well, I did for the first form, right? Because I
Yeah.
thought it's just another type of talus, but it's when it moved into that cube and the weak point was hidden behind all these blocks. I'm like, I wonder if the game wants me. Can I? Oh, I can. And yeah, luckily, this one flew low enough that I could actually beat it in its third form,
Higher,
where it
yeah.
becomes that floating platform. Harder versions fly so high that you have to use the recall strat that Jas was on about to boost.
I
your
was saying I was
recovery.
like shooting the weak
Like
point
when
with
you
the
climb
arrows
up
as
on a
well. There was
meteor,
also
yeah.
one that was fighting where I
Yeah,
did actually. That's
I
where I like took more advantage of like the Omen missiles of the key size. Hit the weak point at the right kind of angle, like because it wasn't always be like behind its head, and I'm like fire it to the side, and it homes in on the back weak point.
yeah. But these guys are fun, really fun.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
So yeah, back to our adventure, I suppose. After that little side adventure, we mentioned that you'll find a kind of a glider if you continue down the path. That if you look out from where the glider with outcroppings heading towards, it seems to be directing you right back towards, very conveniently, to the Temple of Time. So yeah, get a chance to play a bit with the glider, and there's quite a few of these sort of launch platforms dotted about the game. To give you a real chance to soar through the skies like a bird.
When I played the first time, I think I glided towards the Temple of Time and then jumped off and landed in some water. When I played yesterday, I literally flew the glider right into the door of the Temple of Time.
I think, I was trying to adjust my, use Link as a counterweight and adjust my balance.
Yeah, that's how you steer them, right? By walking around on top of it.
Yeah, until later where you get another Zonai device, obviously. But I
was the same. I was way off. I'm I'm not controlling this thing very well. Just let me land close by at least.
But then we get into the Temple of Time. We can make our way up to a statue.
Mm-hmm.
And we discover that, yes, just like in Breath of the Wild, it takes 4 to power up, not 3.
Well, yeah. And before that, as soon as you walk into the Temple of Time, there's a bit of glowing light. So I think the statue's a bit higher up, if I remember right.
Yes, because you need the power to get to the statue.
Yes. And the glowing light, when you trigger it, you see Zelda clad in some strange garb, kind of floating. And kind of her hand reaches out and she clasps Link's hand and almost seems to bestow a power upon you, which is
the real zigzagging all over the place like you do in the real game anyway. So
this episode. yeah. Which is says, as it says in the tin, lets you reverse the trajectory of any object that has already moved. This power is bonkers to me.
This is one which it starts off it seems pretty obvious, right? There's some cogs here. We'll make them spin the other way. We can climb up. Oh, I remember there was one back at the starting area. Let's go and use that. But then as you're playing the game and you're realizing that an enemy can throw a bomb at you and you can just send it back to them.
The enemy rolls a big giant spike ball at you and an enemy base and you just recall it back up so it hits them instead.
First time I did that, I was proper almost punching the air. I was yes! I love that the game lets me do this. It's so good. And what I found that I did quite often with Recall is if there was a puzzle that I just couldn't get or didn't like, and let's just say there was a high gap in the wall, it was probably going to trigger some stairs or something when I solved the puzzle or something like that. Couldn't solve it. What I would do is I'd get a platform, I would lift the platform up to where I needed to go to, drop the platform, hop on the platform, use Recall. And just skip the puzzle.
Yeah.
So this is the power I use.
Just using Recall. It's good for I like the moments where say you've made a glider, not generally got a good kind of launch off point. I like using Recall for that, where you can just basically take Ultra Hand, the glider that you've built, lift it into the air, let it drop, jump on the glider, hit Recall, and then you're up and high, and then activate your glider to boost away.
Ah, nice.
Yes, yeah.
That's always fun to do. It's so useful when you've got an area.
Cool.
I've done that when I can't find
basically
a good way
not got enough lifting. You get a little bit higher.
So actually, now that I think about it, we got something a bit wrong in the last episode because we were speaking about the door. The first door was the one that
it was just locked off, right? It was
you
just
can't open it because you're too weak.
Mm.
It's not. it was just locked. Like you put your hand on it, and then it came up with a big like red denied, and Rauru says, "Oh, the arm's not powerful enough. You need to go power it up at the shrines." It's the inner door at the Temple of Time is the one that has the health metered mechanic.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because
So-
I was trying to think like when I went back today and I saw where the position of like where the statue is, where everything is. I was like, I couldn't quite remember how it worked. So yeah, you're correct.
Mhm. And yeah, this is the door where Rao is like, "You're not strong enough now. Okay, there's another shrine actually. Go use fast travel. Pop back to where you first awoke, and see if you can get to it."
And yeah, we talked
And-
like way back in our first episode after the first impressions. Like,
Yeah.
we all tried to get up this spinning wheel when we couldn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's because we needed this power.
Yes. Which we use the power to rewind a spinning wheel, and we discover the Nacho Ya Shrine, the ability to rewind.
Yes,
It's Nacho Yaha.
and yeah, this is our actual fourth shrine. Nacho, yeah.
It's again another gentle introduction to Recall with you kind of rewinding some rafts across water and things like that. So
Yep.
using it to totally break the game, like some of us have been doing, is probably not in most players' minds by this point. But yeah,
Yeah, early like all four of these, they give you like the very basic way to use these powers, but like 30 hours in, you're doing some really bonkers stuff with all of this.
Barely the tip of the iceberg yet.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of barely the tip of the iceberg, here we are. What, episode 5 of this podcast? We're coming to the end of our tutorial.
Yep. So once you clear your fourth shrine, you can return back and trade in the 4 blessings of light for a heart container. And the game makes sure that you can't soft lock yourself. It doesn't even give you the option for a stamina vessel.
Yeah,
no.
it was one.
Heart container is all you're getting here, mate. And that then gives you enough life force enough strength back in your body to open that door.
What would have been really smart would have been if they'd had a door that needed 4 hearts. Or, technically, you could climb over, but you just needed slightly more stamina.
I guess there's probably a way to cheese that second method.
Yeah,
that
because you would have put together a ladder out of logs or whatever.
Yeah,
a little platform.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I get why they've done it this way, and it makes sense. But yeah,
But yeah, we find another blob of light just outside the Temple of Time on the kind of a outcropping, so to speak, and we see the Master Sword kind of get taken into the blob of light.
yeah, we basically hand it back to Zelda.
Yeah,
wherever
we hear
or
like
whenever she may be.
yes, because you hear quite tellingly a recall noise when you see
Mm.
the sword getting passed from Link to Zelda, and that kind of gives you an early sign of what Zelda's fate might be at this point. But she takes the ruined Master Sword, which I don't know if we've even mentioned. We've had it for the whole Great Plateau, basically.
Yeah,
so
and we could even use it as a weapon. Like,
yeah,
considering the only
Just
other weapon
obviously
we're
a
getting
very
is
weak
twigs, it's
weapon.
not much
Yeah.
different.
I think a twig is almost stronger than it actually. It's obviously got durability.
Mhm.
And yeah, once we see that cutscene pass out, a dragon, a new dragon, one we haven't seen before actually, kind of erupts through the cloud barrier that's been preventing us from seeing the lands below, and we hear Zelda's voice say tellingly, "Link, you must find me." And a new objective
The report
arises
can
for
begin.
us to return
Properly.
to Hyrule Field.
Yes.
And the report can, yes, no longer will we be Great Sky Island Report. We can actually become the Hyrule Field Report.
And yeah, this, I guess, is the start. Like, There's still a few things to unlock. Tellingly, we're about to jump all the way down to the ground. We still don't have our paraglider.
Yeah, and I think that's. I was also, and you mentioned this on an earlier episode. Like, I was thinking, are we even going to get the paraglider? Like, oh my god, what's going on here?
Yeah, we're jumping all the way down to the earth.
Dear listener, that is where the next edition of the report will find us, as we find ourselves landing in Hyrule Field, get the lay of the land and find out exactly, well, what went down at Hyrule Castle and what's befell the Kingdom of Hyrule whilst we've been recuperating and recovering up in the Great Sky Island. So make sure and join us for that one. Until then, Luke, take us away.
Yeah, if you've enjoyed this podcast, you can find us on Twitter or Facebook at Hyrule Field Pod. We're also on, of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. However you're listening right now, make sure you rate and review, like and subscribe, share it with your friends. And if you want to hear more podcasts made by me and my pals, head over to patreon.com/podcastio-podcastius. There's gaming podcasts, there's movie podcasts, there's sci-fi podcasts, you know. There might be something there that tickles your pickle. You can listen to everything for free, but then, if you want to, you can throw us $1 a month to help keep things online and maybe listen to episodes a little bit early as soon as we're done editing.
Sage, like word or words? some
sage
sage, just a sage word, you know. No, I was going to say, like, if you ever find yourself in the snowy mountains of the Gerudo Highlands, just don't eat yellow snow.
Sage advice.
Oh.
Thank
Thank
until
you
next time.
for listening.
Catch you then.